I used to believe this myth that to be disciplined, I had to suck it up and just push through hard work even when I didn't feel like it. But after turning into someone who does hard things consistently and teaches others how to do the same, I realized that mindset was what was holding me back. See, work isn't meant to feel hard. We're not meant to fight a battle of mental resistance all our life to get things done. That would be incredibly unproductive. Instead, when we see people do hard things consistently, it's not because they have an ability to tolerate hard things. It's because they've tapped into the part of the brain that makes doing any task consistently become effortless, no matter how difficult it is. And that part of the brain is called the basal ganglia. So I'm going to show you the 3 steps to become effortlessly disciplined and consistent at doing anything, no matter how hard the task is. And it starts by understanding what discipline actually means to your brain. We tend to think of discipline as forcing ourselves to do something consistently. But to our brains, discipline and consistency is something that happens automatically without effort. Think of what you do every morning. You probably wake up, have a shower, brush your teeth, and get dressed. These aren't things we do for fun, yet we do them consistently every day. But the thing is, we don't have to force ourselves to do it, and it doesn't feel difficult. Instead, it happens automatically without you thinking. This is because, for specific reasons we'll cover later, your brain has decided to memorize these behavioral patterns so that you do them automatically and effortlessly. So if we're trying to force ourselves to do something, it's actually a sign we need to do a better job at programming these behaviors into our brains. And to do this, you need to build something called automaticity. Automaticity is the measure of how effortlessly you do something. When something has high automaticity, you do it automatically without forcing yourself to do it. And the good thing is, you can build automaticity for any task, no matter how hard it is. And this is done using a 3-part formula. The first part of which is to manage your triggers. See, the first step to automatic behaviors is to understand they are triggered. A trigger is something we notice in our environment that reminds us to do something. It might be the day of the week, time of day, location, what we see, what we smell, or what we hear. For example, when we hear our phone vibrate, it automatically triggers us to pick up our phone. And when we smell some good food, it automatically triggers us to go and eat some. So the key here is to design our environment to surround ourselves with as many triggers as possible so that our brains subconsciously remind us to do the work. To do this, I recommend 2 main strategies. The first is to grab a pen and physical calendar and put them where you spend most of your time at home. This is going to be your habit tracker, where you track how much action you take on your goal every single day. I'll explain how to use this habit tracker in step 2, but for now, just know that having this habit tracker in front of you at all times will be a constant visual reminder to take action on your goals. So now you've set up some triggers to remind yourself to do the work. You might still be wondering whether this will actually work, since we tell ourselves to do things all the time, yet never take action. Well, that problem will be resolved in step 2 and 3. But just before we get there, we need to realize that managing triggers isn't just about creating triggers to do the things we want. We also want to remove any triggers that will make us do the things we should avoid doing and take us away from our work. So start paying attention to all the times your attention gets taken away from your work and figure out what triggers those behaviors. This might mean you need to put your phone in the drawer, turn off notifications, or make sure you work in an isolated environment. So now that we've managed our triggers, we need to move on to the second step, which is to create immediate feedback. See, for our brains to memorize a behavior in response to a trigger, it needs to have a reason to. Think of it like this: when your brain sees a trigger and you take action, it's only the actions that get immediately rewarded that it learns that you should do those actions again. This is why we always check our phone when we get a notification, because we always get immediately rewarded. But this is where the problem most of us have with our goals. For most of our goals, like getting in shape or making money, the rewards are far into the future, and so our brains don't get that immediate feedback it needs to memorize and automate these behavioral patterns. Thankfully, the reward pathways in our brain have a way around this. See, whenever our brains recognizes we've made progress towards our goal, it immediately gives us a hit of dopamine to make us feel good, to give us the positive feedback to tell us to do it again. Just like when we see our score go up whenever we score a goal. And so what we want to do is find a way to make our progress a lot more obvious. And to do this, there are 2 steps. Step 1 is to identify what measurements of work will lead to you achieving your goal. If it's getting bigger in the gym, you're going to need to lift heavier and do more reps. If it's working on a business, you're going to need to sit down and put in more hours into your business. Then step 2 is to start measuring how much of that work you do every single day. So every time you're at the gym, start tracking all the exercises, weights, and reps you do. And if it's your business, start tracking how much time you're spending each day on your business. And at the end of each day, grab the calendar I mentioned earlier and write down the amount of work you did. This calendar is now a constant reminder of your progress, and each time you write in how much work you did at the end of the day, it'll make you feel positive and want to do more the next day. This system not only makes you feel good about working hard, but it also gives your brain the immediate feedback it needs to realize that these are the behaviors it needs to start memorizing and make automatic to help you achieve your goals. Now, besides triggers and rewards, there's one more requirement before a behavior becomes automatic. Just like when we learn to do anything like learning to ride a bike, we can't just do it once and expect to memorize how to do it. Studies show that we need to repeat the behavior consistently 60 days in a row for our brains to remember it and finally make it automatic. What this means is we need to pass this initial period of reminding ourselves to do the work, and it will eventually become effortless and automatic to do, just like riding a bike. But there are two important factors that determine how consistent you need to be. The first is that you must have consistency of triggers. See, even if we do a good job at working every day, our brains will have a hard time recognizing the behavioral pattern if we constantly work under different conditions, like different times of the day or in different locations, because the pattern of triggers and actions are different. So we want to make sure that we're working in the same environment every time, just like how we wake up, brush our teeth, shower in the same time and location every single day. And the second consistency factor is momentum. See, building the automaticity of our behaviors is like building a sandcastle. Each day we take action, we add another scoop of sand and our castle grows bigger. But each day we take a break, the waves come in and take some sand away. And if we leave the castle for too long, eventually we'll have nothing left. That's why it's been shown that each time we take a break from taking action, our brains start forgetting the behavior and we lose a little bit of automaticity we built the previous day. Meaning what started to become easy will start to feel difficult again. So the general rule to follow is to not let yourself skip the habit more than twice in a row so that you don't lose too much automaticity and that you finally build the momentum to make all your behaviors automatic and effortless. So those are the 3 steps to becoming effortlessly disciplined and consistent at doing anything. But there's one glaring issue with all of this, and that is we can't build consistency if we can't even get started. So check out this video where I share the same steps I teach to my clients on how to make starting your work feel effortless so you can finally build the discipline you want. Till then, you only live this life once, make the most of it.